Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you had a really great day trading today. All right, so we had some really big moves today. Check out IWM up almost 6%. That definitely doesn't happen every day. Dow Jones up almost 4%. Both NASDAQ and S&P 500 almost 3% for both of those. And we also had some other big moves in the market. Nvidia up 4%. Tesla up 14.75%, Adobe 4%, Amazon 4%. Banks did really well today. Visa up 5%, Bank of America up almost 9%, Synchrony Bank up 18%. I think I have JP Morgan here somewhere. JP Morgan up 12%. So banks did really well today. Small caps did really well today, huge moves in the market. And SPY, we did open today with a huge gap up and we got outside of the implied move. And yesterday, I know I very clearly said, if we gap up above the implied move, we're gonna squeeze higher and don't try and call top on the day. And guess what I did today? I took a red day because I tried to call top. And this was in SPX for me, but I am so good at giving advice sometimes. And I don't always play it the way I know I should. So today I messed up. I tried to call top. I'll get into that when we get over into SPX. But in SPY, we did open today with a big gap up all the way outside of the implied move. So that means we gapped over the 1 hour 200 moving average, the 30-minute 200 moving average, the down gap right here, and we did see a bullish cross right here. We gapped over this downtrend line and we got all the way above all-time highs in that opening move. So huge up gap. And then when we dropped back down, we actually bounced right on previous all-time highs. So top of the implied move was 586. We gapped right up to that at open. Then we pushed up to the top of the implied move on the next day, briefly pulled back and bounced. So that confirms again that if we gap over the implied move, we're gonna squeeze that day. And SPX, same thing over here. We gapped up to the top of the implied move. Here we didn't actually make all-time highs with that first candle, but we did get there with that second candle. So 58.75 was the top of the implied move, and 58.78 was previous all-time highs. And we gapped right up to that, gapping over this down gap and taking it all the way to the top of the implied move. Then we did pop up, dropped back down to previous all-time highs, and then we pushed up and made new all-time highs throughout the day. Bullish cross up right here with that 35 EMA pulling above the 30-minute 200 moving average. And SPY did close up 2.49%, SPX up 2.53%. And we did not stay within the implied move today. In SPY, we didn't even touch it. In SPX, that first candle we did, but then we got outside of it and squeezed higher. And QQQ, same thing over here. We opened with a gap up all the way to the top of the implied move, and we gapped over this up gap and this down gap, and we gapped over that. So we have 3 gaps now right here, which definitely makes this a target for the next few days. And so we gapped up and we got above the previous resistance around 500, took it to 501, which was the top of the implied move. 504 was the top of the implied move on Thursday's contract, and we pushed right up to that, quickly pulled back down, bounced on the top of the implied move here, and we went in for the squeeze. And right here, 505 was the top of the implied move on Friday's contract for the whole week. I did that number when we started the week, and we did hit that today, 505.58. There is a high probability that we pull back underneath to get underneath 505 for the next 2 days, so just keep that in mind. QQQ up 2.72%. VXN down 16.18%. Did I say VIX down 20.68%? I don't feel like I mentioned that when we went over SPY. But the VIX got absolutely crushed today, down 20%. So VXN down 16.18%. And here we also did not close within the implied move. And we did also make new all-time highs today in QQQ. And then IWM had a huge day. We did gap straight up outside of the implied move, outside of the next day's implied move. We did already have that positive momentum here, and we just squeezed up. IWM closed up 5.79%. That is huge. VX, the Russell Volatility Index, down 23.4%, down to 20. And this is just the craziest move. We gapped over two resistance levels. We got above the top of the implied move for the week, which was 229. And we gapped up above the top of the implied move for today, the top of the implied move for tomorrow. And we closed today just short of all-time highs. So I'm going to take this is the 5-year chart here, and this is where we closed today. You could see that takes us back to right here, back to November of 2011, and we are just short of all-time highs at 244.46. So about $6 away from all-time highs. So if you're looking for a target, if you're still bullish after this move, then all-time highs could be a good place to look. Now, still on this 1 week time frame here, we did hit overbought today right here. So you could see in IWM, we don't get this signal very often. So right here, we got that signal, we pulled back. Right here, pulled back. Right here, pulled back. So we got this signal today. We are overbought. Like you can see right here, that goes to right here. We pushed up a little bit more before actually pulling back down. So here we are just short of all-time highs. It's very possible that we push up, hit that, maybe make new all-time highs, and then pull back to this 35 EMA. All right, so that was IWM today. Definitely the biggest winner of the day with an almost 6% move. And then the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones, huge gap up today outside of the implied move. We gapped over this down gap right here and over the next two resistance levels. You can see right here is where we made all-time highs back in mid-October, and today we gapped over previous all-time highs and pushed up. So absolutely wild day on the market today. All-time highs across the board. Actually, IWM was just short of all-time highs, but really big moves across the board. All right, guys, let's go check out tomorrow's levels. Alright guys, so before we head into tomorrow's trading ranges, if you find these videos useful, if they help you to choose better strikes and take better trades, and you love that I break it down every night, then please make sure to give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out when I do post new videos. Leave me a comment if you have any questions at all. I will get back to you, I promise, usually pretty quickly. And if you took a really awesome trade and it's because of something you learned here or something I said, then don't be afraid of that thank you button. And that goes directly into helping me grow this channel and to be able to bring you guys more content. Alright, so starting in SPY, tomorrow's implied move is between 585 and 595, and that is from options. The 30-day average volatility really lines up right with that. And then the implied move on Friday's contract is between 584 and 597. Now we're seeing a much smaller trading range than we saw yesterday, and that is because VIX got crushed. We went from 23 all the way down to 16, so down 20%. That really made this trading range a lot smaller, and this is about the size we have been seeing lately. So $4.50 for tomorrow's contract, $6 on Friday's contract, and to the upside, the only thing we have in tomorrow's trading range, and this is a level, this is the top of the implied move at 596. We are at all-time highs, so we don't have any other resistance, but 596 is the top of the implied move, and 597 is the top of the implied move on Friday's contract. And to the downside, we do have the 35 EMA pretty far outside of the implied move. And if you've been following for a while, you know that if the 35 EMA is underneath the implied move, we almost always have either a flat day or a down day. So that is definitely the first level you should be aware of. And then we have the bottom of the implied move at 585, and that is also where we had previous all-time highs. And those numbers actually look a little off. This is 586 right here. So let me change that. Okay, and this one is 585. I'm not sure why that happened, but okay. So bottom of the implied move is now 586 and 585 on Friday's contract. Now the top of the implied move for the entire week was set to 587. So there is a probability that we close underneath that. And with the 35 EMA underneath here, that does look very possible. So underneath the trading range, we do have this up gap right here. So we actually have two gaps. We have this down gap and this up gap that is an island bottom reversal, which is a bullish setup. And then we also have this downtrend line right here that goes off of all-time highs, previous all-time highs, which we did gap over today. So this downtrend, after we made all-time highs, we started making lower highs, and that downtrend is right there in the gap. That could act as a support if we drop. We have the 30-minute 200 moving average as well. And now we're actually getting pretty far away from the trading range for tomorrow. So the only thing in tomorrow's trading range is just the implied moves. That's it. The very bottom, we have previous all-time highs, and the 35 EMA is underneath us. So extremely straightforward. Be prepared for a possible bearish pull because of this 35 EMA, but outside of that, we don't have anything in there. And sometimes when we don't have anything in there, it is a good idea to drop down to the next time frame, the smaller time frame. So that would take us to the 5-minute. And that way you have something else to look for. See, the 35 EMA on the 5-minute time frame is where we consolidated back to after that gap up. So if we break that tomorrow, and if that acts as a resistance, then maybe look down to this next support level right here, which we saw as support here today, and then the bottom of the implied move. So usually we're on the 30-minute time frame, but when there's nothing in the trading range, drop it down to the 5-minute. It just gives you something to work with within the day's range. All right, so then taking it over to SPX, the implied move over here is between 58.75 and 59.80. That is from options. 30-day average is lined right up with that, and then Friday's contract is 58.65 to 59.90. The top of the implied move on the week was 58.80, and we were clearly above that, but there's always a pretty high probability of closing within that, so getting pulled down is definitely a possibility for tomorrow or Friday. It definitely doesn't have to be tomorrow, but maybe Friday. And then again, we have a pretty empty trading range over here. 35 EMA, always know where your 35 EMA is. It is underneath us and outside of the implied move, which usually signals a down day or a flat day while we wait for that 35 EMA to catch up. And then we have this down gap and up gap right here, which is an island, and that does also tend to pull us in as well. So downtrend line 2 right there. So a lot happening underneath us, but we don't have anything in the trading range, so then drop it down to the 5-minute time frame. That way you at least have another level to look for. If we drop underneath that, start printing red candles, seeing this as resistance, then maybe look down to the bottom of the implied move at 58.75 for a pullback to close the week. All right, so then taking it over to QQQ, the implied move over here for tomorrow is between 500 and 511, and that is from options. That is also the 30-day average volatility, which is pretty cool to see that really wide range that we had today. That was way outside of the 30-day average, and we dropped right back down to the 30-day average afterwards. So Friday's contract 499 to 512. And we are at all-time highs here, and the only level we have is this, which is previous all-time highs. That is at 504. 505 was the top of the implied move for the week, so we're just a little bit above that. Definitely could be a high probability of closing underneath 505. 35 EMA is underneath us. That usually signals down or flat day. Not always, but it seems to be about 90% of the time. And then underneath us, we do have that battle zone, and it's a pretty decent one. We have this up gap right here, this down gap, and this up gap, all overlapping. And if we zoom out, you can see that we have been making higher highs and lower lows. So we have a megaphone pattern here, and it'll be interesting to see. It doesn't look like we quite broke out of it yet, but it'll be interesting to see if we can hold this level and keep making new all-time highs, or if we come back down and make another lower low. So that is QQQ. Easy trading range tomorrow, nothing too crazy. If we do drop down to the bottom of the trading range, 500, 499, looks like a good setup here. That would be trying to see if this previous resistance would be a support level. And to the upside, if we get to the top, then 511 and 512 looks like a good option as well. And don't forget about that 505 sitting there in the middle. And IWM, implied move over here, is 232 to 242. And that is from options. 30-day average lines right up with that. And 231 to 243 on Friday's contract. Again, there is nothing in our trading range tomorrow. It is completely open. We're not quite at all-time highs. I don't have what all-time highs is right here. So 244.50 is where we have all-time highs. So that is just a little bit outside of our trading range for tomorrow. So right here, all-time highs, we are super close to all-time highs. First time since 2021, and I think in the first half of the video I said since 2011, and I didn't correct that, but it's since 2021 we haven't seen all-time highs in IWM, and we are just underneath that. So 35 EMA is underneath us. Always know where that is, because that does tend to act as a magnet. If we extend that out, that should take us down to probably about the bottom of the implied move on tomorrow's contract. And if you need another level because there's nothing in there, drop it down to the 5-minute time frame, and now you have this 35 EMA. And if we see that as support, then look up. And if we see that as resistance, then look down. Super easy, not difficult. We're at or pretty darn close to all-time highs in everything. So just waiting to see where momentum takes us tomorrow, and if we make the entire implied move. If we do take it to the top, 242 to 243 would be a good contract or a good spread to put on, and 243, 244 if you want to be a little safer. And to the downside, if we drop 232 to 231, and that would be assuming this up gap holds us up. And 229 was the top of the implied move for the week, so that would be interesting to see if we can close within that. That would need us to drop down to underneath this previous resistance right here. So underneath all of that, we do have some pretty flat momentum. So yeah, we definitely could get pulled under and into this gap. And lastly, DIA, we do have an implied move over here for the entire week. That was between 409 and 432. Today we gapped outside of that, but it's very possible that to close the week, we do pull back to close underneath 432. and that would take us back underneath some previous resistances that now would need to be tested as support. Underneath that, we do have some pretty flat momentum, and we also have this bear gap right here, which looks like it's calling us in right here into the battle zone. So bottom of that gap, 427. So keep 427 in mind, 432, which was that previous top of the implied move. And there you have it, guys. Everything you need to make tomorrow really awesome. Let me know how you're planning on playing this, and have fun, trade safe. Make sure you take profits when you're up, and I will